Sonic Generations originally came out in 2011, but this is the remaster of Sonic X Shadow Generations. Although you think at some point just say it's called Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. But it's anyway, this is the remaster with the main thing that people care about being the brand new Shadow Generations campaign added to it. But I will be covering the Shadow Generations portion first, since it is still part of the package, everything, and there are some differences between this and the original 2011 release. Our main premise is that while celebrating Sonic's birthday, everyone gets taken by this mysterious creature that has torn apart all time and space. And during the process, while Sonic's trying to figure out what's going on, he ends up coming across his younger self, or a version of him from a parallel universe, being as later games try to retcon that, but this game doesn't. But I don't know anymore. Either way, Modern Sonic, Classic Sonic, two versions of the same character are here for this journey. Also Classic Tails, but you know, people like Classic Knuckles. It would have been funny if they had like more of the classic versions here, but nah, they don't, sadly. And that is pretty much all you can really say about the story. It's not a bad story, it's very simple and it can just be summarized as this big monster's turn across time and space, the two Sonics go around to save the day. There's not really much more to it. Some people say it's a bad story. It's not bad, far from it. It just exists to pretty much explain the point scenario of going through these levels through the various Sonic games, and that's pretty much all that it needs to really do. It's not anything bad, it's just simple and to the point. Granted, you do have little character interaction bits with the rest of the cast, especially if you finish a level with either Modern Sonic or Classic Sonic, with this remaster doing Modern Sonic lines towards his friends, although it is interesting to see the modern cast kind of interact with Classic Sonic and the comments they make towards him, considering they go, he looks kind of like Sonic, but not fully, kind of haunter aspect.
Thank you, Blue. That thing that grabbed me was like nothing I've ever seen before. Watch out. Come to think of it, you're looking nothing like I remember either.
Although, I won't know if people do more than the fact that Knuckles' line in the OG version did have him confused by Sonic, even though he should know what Classic Sonic looks like. Well, in this version, he acts more familiar, but they didn't change the animation, so it's just a weird segment. But just the fact that, at least in this version, he now should recognize what Classic Sonic looks like.
Thanks, Sonic. Now then, tell me, where is the rest of my island?
There are other script changes and also re-recorded lines in the game that, honestly, they just kind of exist, really. And they're not anything major or bad as people try to over-complain about them, but it's fine. It's more of a case of, why kind of do it kind of thing? We're not going to add more to the main scenario or more interactions kind of thing. Like, I get there are some lines in the original that need re-recording, like Shadow's line at the end of the game where it sounded so awkward, so they got a new line here for that part, but it's just one of those things where some of the rewrites of the script just kind of exist to exist, and I guess that's all you really need to do. Now for the gameplay, split up into two parts, where you have Act 1 as Classic Sonic, which is pure 2D side-scrolling, although his spin dash is way more powerful than the previous games. My goodness, he just kind of goes in this game for entire thing. And just get the 2D side-scrolling experience, which makes it very cool to see Mario levels redesigned in that style. Then you also have Modern Sonic, who also does 2D when he really shouldn't be in this entry. I know it's kind of the style they've been doing around this time for Sonic games, but like, kind of redundant. But also the 3D segments, and seeing the classic style games being redone in 3D is very cool to see as well, although most of the game's levels, naturally since more Mario Sonic titles they're pulling from, are going to be more so towards Mario Sonic games, so it could just be more the fact of, hey, here's more Mario Sonic in these past levels, but they're also more the levels you've kind of already been through in those 3D entries. Like, would have been cool if there were more 2D Sonic games, or at least from that era pulled into this game. Like, I'm surprised there's no Sonic CD level. Even more awkward since this remaster does now have a reference directly to Sonic CD, but one of those things where it's just not here. On top of the fact that Sonic 3 and Knuckles is counted as one game, so that means only one level represents them, even if they're originally released as two games that could combine into one. That's why it becomes one entire very lopsided towards modern Sonic in that sense. Another issue they've had since the game first came out in 2011 is the fact that Classic Sonic only has 2 boss fights in the game, and the rest are only designed for modern Sonic. I would have thought it would have been cool if Classic Sonic went up against more of the modern entourage of villains and characters that Sonic has to go through, but no, they keep the classic villains fighting classic Sonic and the modern villains fighting modern Sonic. And it is cool seeing these reimagined versions where Sonic is fighting enemies that before required the Chaos Emeralds and now he doesn't have them. It is cool with that in mind, but just once again feels like modern classic Sonic kind of gets left out a bit in a celebration because of how it's more geared towards the boost style modern Sonic, on top of the fact of the entire thing of putting bosses like the Egg Dragoon, which is already an enemy you fought in a Boost Sonic game. Granted, you fought it with the Werehog, and now with regular modern Sonic and boosting, it's one of those things where we could have had classic Sonic going up against more modern villains, is what I would have preferred. There's also these challenges, which you have to do at least some of them in order to progress the game. What the challenges can vary, whether it be just, oh, beat this level under a certain time limit, or a bunch of them which have Sonic's friends helping out the 2 Sonics, so there's 2 levels per the characters helping them in different ways, or maybe it's just them ushering a challenge to the character in question, which is a cool way of integrating them as little side stuff. Granted, some of these challenges are kind of kind of thing, or I can see what the idea they're going for, but the execution is kind of flawed, and what I didn't really like was one with Mario, Sonic, and Blaze, where Blaze is meant to put out the fire, but it's the fact that her put out the fire is like sometimes one at a time, which is not the best when it comes to high-speed movement in modern Sonic, or the fact that she can also attack enemies, which you need to homing attack for your pathway. So it's one of those things where it's like, I get what they're going for this Blaze level for modern Sonic, but the execution just wasn't exactly there. Also, the fact you can activate Omochao in this game, that can give you, it not only gives you a tutorial to play the game, but also tries to give you tips and hints in the levels and during boss battles. You can turn off Omochao, but it's an interesting way of including a one-tier system to help the player, on top of the fact that you still have the rainbow rings that also tell you the controls, so you have a tutorial system and a bonus hint system of Omochao trying to assist you if you want that aspect. You also have the levels in the game being voted on by the fan base, and you can feel that in both good or bad ways. Good ways because one of those things where, hey, you can see the levels being picked are stuff that other people probably did enjoy from those games as standout choices. The downside being the how many times you see city levels in this game. So I get the idea of, hey, wanted the fans to get involved. Also makes you wish that, okay, maybe there's some things we shouldn't have picked for this journey, quote-unquote, whole entire thing, you know, where I love the fan inclusion, but sometimes the fans don't exactly make the best choices when it comes to the levels picked. But the 3DS version also had different levels picked and variety. It's one of those things where it could have been cool they had more variety here. Like I said, no, the idea is fans, give them a vote, give them a choice, but at the same time, there are some instances where, okay, maybe listening to the fans and getting like 4 city levels is not the best idea. You do also have power-ups for both classic and modern Sonic that can alter their gameplay, and you can go equip them from the shop. I also love the fact that you can also change the music for each level and everything. So it's a very cool aspect that, hey, you want to change the level music? Go ahead. And there's so many different tracks from the games, even new remixes on top of that for the tracks as well. So it's super great to see that inclusion. It's one of those things I always kind of enjoy this game of just mix matching the music, and the fact that it lets you do that. Overall, for Sound Generations portion, it was awesome back in 2011, and it's still awesome here. Yeah, there's some changes, like some changes to the script that are honestly pretty negligible and just kind of exist. There are also some changes to the fact that the boost button has been remapped to the R2 button akin to Sonic Frontiers. Also the fact that Classic Sonic, actually both Classic and Modern Sonic, were both given the drop dash Sonic Mania, because we need another reminder that Sonic Mania has a chokehold in this franchise. whole entire aspect, so there are some new additions to Sonic's kit, but modern Sonic still has the bigger kit with the stuff he uses to get to the levels, while classic Sonic tries to keep things simple and everything, even if we do have the power-up system and then get equipped from the shop. But like I said, Sonic Generations is still awesome. The story is simple to the point. You still get the fun interaction with the characters, with the challenges, everything. I just wish Classic Sonic got more boss fights and stuff, or got to interact with Sonic's villains, because despite having these hodgepodge of villains showing up for boss fights, they surprisingly don't really talk to Sonic or have anything to say. And this is gonna sound weird for criticism to mention, but it'll make sense once we get to the Sonic Generations portion of this video. So Sonic Generations is awesome, and it was dumb as I tried to delist the original version from Steam, but luckily fans complain about it, so you can still get that if you want that version with all the mods it had. Alright then, on to now Shadow Generations. This section features spoilers for Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, and Shadow the Hedgehog. You might find it weird how this specific segment needs to have a spoiler warning, but that's because this one starts getting more direct follow-up to previous titles, and even includes a recap of events from those games and everything to catch new players up to speed, since they haven't ported Sonic Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Sonic 2 lacks a console port. So you've been warned? Alrighty then, good day. First interesting thing to note is the fact that the Shadow Generations portion actually had promotional animations made for it that were released online and can be downloaded to your game if you're on PlayStation 4 and 5. For some reason, it's an exclusive feature to those versions where you're able to download and view the animations that are essentially the setup to this game. Do you need to see them? Not really, but they do help flesh things out and explain certain aspects that the game will explain anyway, but it's one of those things that, like, why make that a console exclusive thing? The main premise is that Shadow, sensing something wrong on the Space Colony arc, goes to investigate, only to find Black Doom from Shadow the Hedgehog has somehow returned. And then the entire process of Generations happens, so now Shadow is stuck within the white space everyone else is trapped in, but he's stuck in a different portion of it, with Black Doom trying to hatch some sort of plan. Shadow has also begun now obtaining these new powers of mutating, having no idea what's going on with him, with Black Doom saying that it's part of trying to quote-unquote complete Shadow, and to remind him that he has the blood of the Black Arms race within him. Meanwhile, because of time and space being broken, you have Gerald Robotnik and Maria Robotnik actually being here, with Shadow being conflicted on the aspect of could he possibly alter their fate, since in this place where all time is broken, they're still here before their death. But even off the bat, Maria and Gerald do highlight that something's off with Shadow, not fully knowing at first it is not the same Shadow they remember from when they got pulled through time, but instead a Shadow who's gone through multiple adventures and still dealing with the trauma of their passing. Despite the way more emotional setup when it comes to Shadow Generation's storyline, honestly, it's still a very simple and straightforward story, with the weirdness of, despite Shadow trying to hatch this plan to alter the future, they don't really do much with it when it comes to the main narrative. Aside from the fact that when you casually talk to them, Gerald does mention he doesn't want to know anything about the future because he doesn't want to risk essentially changing and potentially breaking all of time if him and Maria are given information that they aren't supposed to know yet. When it comes to the main story, it is specifically focusing on the fight against Shadow and Black Doom as his whole entire plan. This is a weird thing where it has this whole entire emotional hook, but not a whole lot is done with it, and yet this extra lore you can get from Gerald's journal, but it's just one of those things where, for something that's made up as the main narrative of this whole entire adventure, you think more be done with it, but at the end, it's still just a simple adventure in the same way the Sonic Generations portion is. Overall, I definitely enjoy the narrative here more than Sonic Generations portion, but still just a simple adventure with a more emotional hook, and also the fact that Shadow's companions who you can talk to don't really do a whole lot in the same way that they didn't really do a whole lot when it came to Sonic Generations portion. Just one of those things where, hey, here's Omega. That's most certainly Omega, Or even here when you have the inclusion of Big the Cat here, just being, I think, the first official time Shadow and Big actually ever communicate. It's not much, but hey, it's just a little funsy thing. Also reminds me of time where, I can't remember when, remember this one live stream I saw where we wondered, hey, Shadow and Big would never talk to each other. What would they say? And well, this game gives you the idea what they would say to each other. Now for the gameplay of Shadow Generations, what the first thing I'll point out is the difference in the hub world. Where Shadow Generations had a hub world that was fully in 2D when it came to exploring everything. Shadow Generations hub world is designed to take after inspiration from Sonic Frontiers, so it is fully in 3D and it has a lot of nook and crannies to explore, which on one hand makes it a more entertaining hub world to go through, but on the other hand, we kind of just want to get to the next level. There are times where it could just be like, how would I get there? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. It's the point where there is a fast travel system in here, but it's the fact that the fast travel only unlocks after you completed the level and everything. With there being points where just to get a Sonic Generations portion, you need to obtain key at the boss level, but here, they have you go to the boss door and then activate the challenges for you to do. And it's like, why not activate the challenge to beat the level, so that when I go to the boss door, I have to go to it once, and I have to go back, and when this place is big and more 3D exploration, there was one point where I couldn't remember how to get to the boss door in question. Now for the actual stages, where Act 1 will be fully in 3D, and Act 2 will be fully in 2D. It's just one of those things that makes me wish the Sonic Generations portion did, or some other modern Sonic games, is the fact that the Act 1s are fully in 3D. They don't have Shadow switching over between 3D and 2D like modern Sonic, and it's just so much better for and more entertaining. It also means the 2D stages don't feel redundant as a result, which is such a great feeling on top of seeing these levels that they pulled from many different entries and being levels that Sonic Team chose opposed to being ones chosen by the fan base, so there are more unexpected picks here. It couldn't even level Sonic Frontiers, which as people complain about how Sonic Frontiers level here when it didn't happen yet. Time and space is broken, so of course things from the future are getting pulled in here as well. The major differences for Shadow's gameplay is not only his ability to do stuff like Chaos Snap, where he'll teleport towards enemies to attack them instead of doing a homing attack, or Shadow having Chaos Control, which you can use to freeze time, including even the timer needed for S ranks as well. But also the fact that he now has the Doom powers, being such as the Doom Spear, which is a more amped up version of Chaos Spear, like stun enemies or hit switches, or even stuff like Doom Blast, which has will send enemies flying, and Chaos Snapping towards the flown enemy, everything. Doom Surf, or to go over water, although I wish you could boost while you Doom Surf, but kinda can't. And Doom Morph, which allows you to go over these specific little panels that normally will slow you down, although I wish you had to enter this little orb thing first, which that wasn't a caveat to activate Doom Morph. They could do it on their own, but the fact that they add so much to Shadow's kit in order to make his levels stand out, be more unique, and it can be a point where sometimes there's just a lot of stuff the game wants to do in the levels, ideally for alternate pathways, but it's a cool way to set Shadow's campaign apart from the two Sonics. You also have the challenge levels that for Shadow's case are more geared around mastery over certain aspects of Shadow's kit and everything. So it's more about seeing how well you can do a Shadow's kit as opposed to just being some overall general challenge or something that requires you to, okay, do this level, but now do it with the caveat of one of your friends helping you in this kind of aspect. So they try to shake up how these levels, these challenges function for Shadow as well to differentiate him from the two Sonics. Then he has the boss encounters, which put all that into the test. Granted, the encounters generally mostly focus on one aspect of Shadow's kit and makes that the main gimmick of the fight. Like I said, for the most part, they do start using more and more of his kit, but there is one thing I want to emphasize with each boss battle. And when I mentioned the Sonic Generations portion where the characters don't talk much, it's because Shadow has good back and forth with the bosses here, or at least the bosses that can talk back, counter aspect. Even when the bosses that don't talk back, Shadow still has his own little monologues talking to himself aspects. It's just way more dialogue that makes me wish the Generations portion had this, with a confident character like modern Sonic, we're gonna have him doing most of the boss fights. But here, Shadow has full back and forth and is all the better for it. Including seeing a character talk again that I never thought that would actually play into a speaking role in a Sonic game ever again.
Be careful to defeat me! Accept your fate, Hedgehog! I am now the true Sonic! The true ultimate life form!
True ultimate life form? Don't. You'll be joining the rubble in the waters.
The only thing I'd wish on Generations campaign when it comes to levels, and I know it's a common complaint, is the fact that there's no actual level from the titular Shadow the Hedgehog in this game for some reason, despite a whole bunch of the iconography, everything, music being taken or inspired from Shadow the Hedgehog. But I go also one step further and also feel like you're gonna also reference tracks from Shadow the Hedgehog, these vocal tracks. I would have preferred it if they use the original version of All Hail Shadow by Magnify and not just use the Crush 40 version, because you want to go back to the game, then use the version of the track that was first made for that game, and not just the Crush 40 cover that was made for Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, you know? Like, gonna go want to reference Shadow the Hedgehog, go all the way, and include the original version of All Hail Shadow. The only other complaint, and this is more a pet peeve specifically, is the fact that the animations for this game included the track Without You. It is also part of Shadow Generations soundtrack, but for some reason never actually plays in the game itself. I know there is a PC mod that allows you to have it play in the most appropriate moment in the story, but it's one of those things where why didn't the devs themselves use the track anywhere in the game? Maybe it's a credits track, it would have been a good thing to put in, but no, Without You is never used, it's only used in the animation, despite the fact that it is still part of the game's original soundtrack. There is also DLC, whether it be a costume pack to have Dreamcast Sonic from Modern Sonic, or Sonic Genesis Classic Sonic, or the scrapped Tedios the Hedgehog design for Shadow, but there's also DLC to have a Tokyo level based on the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie. I didn't get this DLC, I think it's like $7. Honestly, I don't really think it's worth it for a level that's just one act and 2 challenges. Like, the main novelty is the fact that Keanu Reeves reprises his role for the film, and they made an entirely new Shadow model for this DLC, and the level also includes a remix of the Westopolis level for Shadow the Hedgehog. This game creates a Shadow the Hedgehog level, but instead you use Westopolis for the movie level. Okay, kind of thing. But honestly, I didn't really feel like getting it, because I also feel like it was worth the asking price, because the main novelty is the fact of it's freaking Keanu Reeves reprising his role as Shadow the Hedgehog. Overall, I really like Shadow Generations, but I was just mostly shocked by the fact that Act 1 stages were fully in 3D, and the Shadow levels can go on for way longer than the Sonic levels do in their main campaign. Oftentimes, they've been going to like maybe the 4 to 5 minute mark for the levels when it comes to Act 1's Shadow Generations. So getting that much 3D level designs makes me go, damn, y'all could have done this whole time kind of aspect. But it's good that they're doing it now. It's good that they're doing it here because the levels for Shadow are great. I feel like are a big step up from the Sonic levels, which were already great themselves. So this shows it's even better here, and also makes me more hopeful for what kind of 3D level design they can actually do for a more Sonic title down the road, if this is the benchmark they're doing for what's essentially a smaller campaign. I mean, I say smaller, but it's basically as big as the Sonic Generation portion as this bonus campaign. But I want to do that here for this. It does make me excited for what a next 3D Sonic game could do, although they'll probably just have the 3D, 2D mix again like they usually do, but a person can dream. Now, as an overall package, yeah, this is a great package. Sonic Generation was already a great title to be given in 2011. It's even better now with some of the changes to the remasters, as remapping buttons, adding new abilities for both Sonics, also removing the lives counter, where now instead just failing just has to pop out a checkpoint, but it will lower your score, as opposed to before you have a life counter. But honestly, Sonic Generations was so easy to go through that Reaching the game over screen was something you probably not really ever see unless you were playing like a modded experience, like I was one time. Shadow Generations is an even better campaign, and it makes me see why there are now Silver the Hedgehog fans who are now trying to pitch this idea of a Silver game, because if Shadow the Hedgehog could get another game like this, and it's this good, people want to hope for what could Silver possibly get with this whole entire thing, with his entire powers, or premise combining newer characters we got for the Sonic titles. I can see what Silver fans are trying hard to pitch that idea. It's super cool and everything, although I remember this getting leaked and I was shocked, but the name was actually Sonic X Shadow Generations, you know. I don't know, this game is great, both games are great, and it's a great experience, and I hope, and it makes me more hopeful for future 3D Sonic titles. That's all I gotta say. Alright then, good day.